Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1676A, and today's date is September 28th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Global Economy Breakdown Has Accelerated, the Plan is in Motion. Now, before we get started, I wanted to talk about the patriots that are fighting for our country. Every generation seems to have its own president. For some, it was Kennedy. For others, Nixon, Carter, Bush, or Reagan. Each seems to define an era. Our generation will have Donald Trump as their president. He was the one that took a shattered and broken Washington swamp and drained it of everything he saw that was bad. He will be remembered as a maverick, the man who drained the swamp. He overcame fierce opposition from Democrats and Republicans alike, a corrupt media, misinformation, and fake news to become the 45th president of the United States. Under his administration, America has seen its first major tax reform in 30 years, a renegotiation of the globalist trade deals, the termination of TPP, the process of getting rid of the central banking system, and maybe even resetting the system to make it a people system. His way has so far shaken the cobwebs from all corners of government, and he's only halfway through. Who knows what the next half will bring? To celebrate these first achievements in a fitting and lasting way, Noble Gold has produced an exclusive commemorative President Trump 2020 Freedom Coin. Minted from 1 troy ounce of .999 fine silver, the Trump Freedom Coin is a beautiful and striking coin. The guys at Noble Gold tell me that these are being talked about all over the country. If you're a Trump supporter or you like the perfect gift for someone who is, you'll be in good company. To order yours, go to TrumpCoin2020.com and put in the code X22 and you'll receive $5 off per coin for a limited time. TrumpCoin2020.com and put in the discount code X22 and you could be holding one of these fabulous Trump coins too. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as we track this economy, the economy is breaking down faster and faster. And this has nothing to do with any of the statistical information that the government throws out there or the central bank throws out there, because as we know, that is manipulated. And we talked about car sales quite often, about channel stuffing, how they brought in subprime people. Well, it looks like they're having a difficult time because right now, the channel stuffing, they are at the max. The subprime people, they are running out of the subprime people, and a lot of people are delinquent on paying their car loans. And Edmunds has come out and they have released their estimates saying that new vehicle sales for September are expected to collapse both on a monthly basis and a year-over-year basis. This will be a 5.4% decrease from the last month and an 8.3% drop from September of last year. Now, we know why this is happening. We've been tracking the economy. We've been looking at the automobile industry, and we knew sooner or later that everything would start to decline. Now, of course, the auto industry is out there saying the reason why this is happening is because of the tariffs. No, this has been on a sharp decline. The whole thing was built up on an illusion. They were channel stuffing, bringing in subprime people. And guess what? Now it's time to pay the piper. What's happening here is everything is going to start to break down, and it's going to happen quicker and quicker. And what we're watching right now is the people's economy. This is the problem with the central bank. They can't mask what's happening on the street. They can mask what's happening on a higher level where they say, oh, look at the stock market, look at the GDP numbers, look at the unemployment numbers, look at inflation, look at all the numbers that we can manipulate. What else can they manipulate? Look, we can blow up bubbles in housing. We can blow up bubbles in the automobile industry. We can blow up bubbles in the student loan industry. We can blow up bubbles everywhere. Eventually what happens is these bubbles pop. Eventually what happens is that manipulation is exposed. And that's what we're seeing right now. But this is all part of the plan. The plan is in motion. Basically, the plan is pump the economy up to an economy that we've never seen before. Nothing can be blamed on Trump. While the entire system starts to break down, have the Fed raise the rates continuously. And if bad news comes out, maybe from the D class, and if that should bring down the economy, so be it. And you can see this is where we are headed. Now, in the United States, we have a housing bubble. In Canada, there's a housing bubble. Australia, there's a housing bubble. But the global housing bubble is is gigantic right now. It has grown like we've never seen before. Now, 3 years ago, people said there's no housing bubble, there's no problem, there is absolutely nothing. So UBS looked at the world's most expensive housing markets 3 years ago. It found that London and Hong Kong were the only two areas exposed to bubble risks. Well, 3 years later, what do we see? Well, we see something completely different. Because in the latest report by UBS, what do we see? We see that the bubbles have grown. It found that 6 of the world's largest cities are now subject to a massive speculative housing bubbles. And many others are right on the cusp of being the biggest bubbles we've ever seen. Now, they've expanded their list, and if we take a look at the list, we can see Hong Kong, huge, Munich, huge, Toronto, Vancouver, Amsterdam, London, gigantic housing bubbles. These are the worst. Below this, we have Stockholm, Paris, San Francisco, Frankfurt, Sydney, Los Angeles, Zurich, Tokyo, Geneva, New York. And this is coming from UBS. And if we look at the individual cities, which we've done before, and Wolf Richter has done this quite often, where he looked at the housing bubbles in many different cities, the housing bubbles have been blown up in the 20 cities in the United States. They might not be the biggest bubbles, but they're bigger than they were in 2008. So what this is telling us is that the housing bubble is not just here in the United States, it's not just in Canada, it's global. Remember, the world is interconnected. This is how the central bank system works. Everything is interconnected and centralized. So what they've been doing is they've been blowing up these bubbles everywhere. It's an everywhere, everything bubble. That's what we see right now. And when we look around the world, we can see that countries are starting to break down. The bubbles are going to pop. Once they pop, it's going to be a disaster scenario. And we know they're going to pop because throughout history, they've always popped. The system was designed to do this. This is a central banking system. It is not a people system. But this plan that we keep talking about just doesn't have to do with the economy. Remember, everything is connected because everything goes back to the central bank. The deep state, the central bank. So the deep state used the creation of free money to fund their operations. And of course, they have dark pools of money. They have the Exchange Stabilization Fund. They have everything that we talked about in the past. And they use these funds to put pressure on other countries. Well, this is all about to end. And this is what the plan is. It just doesn't have to do with the declass of FISA or text messages. This whole plan is to bring down the entire operation. Because if you just cut off the few people that were spying on Trump and things like that, and if you cut off one head of the Hydra, another one goes back. You have to go for the body. You have to destroy the entire thing. And that's what this plan is all about. Going after and getting to the root of the problem. Destroying that what makes it possible to fund the deep state, to fund the central banking system, to fund everything that we see around the world. And the plan is to remove this. And that's what we are seeing. Of course, it's one step at a time. You can't just go in and say, okay, we're going to remove all of this. Because remember, there are still those on the other side, central bankers, deep state, many operatives, that will fight this tooth and nail so this doesn't happen. And that's what we see happening. So you have to be very strategic, very cautious, and set everything up and put everything in motion. That's what we're watching right now. And of course, as Q says, enjoy the show. The show is putting everything in motion, putting all the chess pieces in the right spot. So eventually you can say check, checkmate. And there's no way out. Because once you hit checkmate, those people in the establishment in the central bank, those people who are doing corrupt criminal activities, they have no way out. They're stuck. And that's what we're watching right now. All these tariffs, these tax plans, this is for the transitioning us out of the central banking system. This is not about taking their economy and making it better. What would be the purpose in that? There'd be no purpose in that because we would still be stuck in a central banking system, a system that works on debt. Why would we want that? Because eventually what would happen is the government would do what they do best. They would continually to borrow once again, and they would do it, and we'd have the same exact problem. And the only way around this is to get rid of the central bank. And yes, I know eventually what's going to happen, those central bankers will try to get back into government. This is what happened with the Founding Fathers. It happened multiple times where they tried to bring in the central bank number one, then central bank number two, and then finally the Federal Reserve. Once we get rid of the Federal Reserve and the entire central banking system, those people, well, they just don't disappear. They still want to do the same thing they've done throughout history. They want to bring the central banking system back into government, back into the countries, and they will do whatever they possibly can to get it back in there. And what we need to do as a people, we need to remember and always remember that the central bank is the root of all evil, that they do no good for the people of every single country. And this is the problem, is that as time goes on, politicians will accept bribes, politicians will become corrupt, and they hear easy money, and they fall for it, and they go ahead and they allow the central bankers in. This is what we saw back in 1913. Before that, Andrew Jackson had to drive them out. And here we are once again. We're at that point in history where the people need to take charge. The people need to remove the central bank. The people need to take control of the entire financial system of the United States, where we're no longer enslaved to a central bank. So things that you've read in the history books where the Founding Fathers were fighting for freedom, they were also fighting to move away from the central banking system. And that's what we're doing once again. And we can see this is going to be a fight till the very end, because the deep state, the central bank, they will just not give up. They will fight to the end, so we need to fight to the end and take back control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.